Well folks, I'm on the bank today of a very blustery Shearsby Valley Lakes, and I'm here to show you a tactic called the bomb and PVA bag. It's a great little method, catches me fish throughout the year really, but now the water's starting to warm up and the fish are wanting a little bit more bait. It's a really, really good tactic. Let me chuck this out and I'll just run you through all the little tricks and tips that I use to get the best out of this method. So then folks, let's start at the beginning. Let's talk about the actual PVA that I like to use. I like to use a fast breakdown PVA. You can get all sorts of PVA stocking now, fast breakdown, slow breakdown. As a match angler, I want my loose feed to be exposed to the fish as fast as possible, and that means I should get fast bites. So I use a nice fast breakdown PVA. Obviously, I've got girls' fingers. I can tie little tiny knots so I don't rip the bag when I'm tying it. If you've got really rough hands, big sausage fingers, you might want to invest in some tougher PVA, some thicker walled PVA, and that means you're not going to rip the bag when you're tying your little bags up. Let's talk about regulating the amount of feed that you put in the bags. So I use little pole mounted pots, and I just use these as measuring devices. I've got small, medium and large, and I just tie up several bags of each size and then go through the different sizes during the day. Today, obviously we're coming into some slightly warmer weather now, so I'm catching on the medium size. In the winter I might use the really small pot there just to add a little tiny bit of attraction around a single hook bait, but now the fish are wanting a little bit more bait, I'm using the medium sized pot. I'm filling it with 4mm pellets today. It's the fishery pellets here at Shearsby Valley. The fish see these pellets all the time, but there's loads of different things that you can do. So you can fill them with 4mm, 6mm, 8mm, liquidized bread. I mean, I've caught a couple of fish today fishing with a little bit of ground bait in the bag. A bit of slightly damp ground bait isn't going to melt the bag, but it just creates a really little tight area of attraction. That's obviously, we know ground bait attracts fish like nothing else really, so that's well worth remembering. When I'm tying the bags, I don't want them super tight. I want a little bit of freedom between the pellets. That way they don't explode away from each other when the PVA melts. They stay in sort of a tight little area. Tying the bags up is really simple. I do loads at home normally. I just put them in a waterproof bag. It's a case of pouring the right amount of pellets into the bag, tightening down, tying an extra knot above that, snipping between the knots, and that second knot acts as your buffer for your next bag when you make up your next bag. Like I say, whack them in a waterproof bag. Water and PVA doesn't mix obviously, so if it's a slightly damp day you can keep them covered on your side tray, hook one on, chuck it out. When it comes to hooking the bags, I like to hook the bags twice. That way I know that they're not going to fall off. So I place the hook through the bag once, well away from any knots. The knots are the last thing to break down, so you don't want a clump of PVA around your hook. Hook the bag once, twist the bag, and then hook the bag again. That way the bag is guaranteed to stay on no matter how hard you hit the clip or how hard you hit the water when the lead actually goes in. When it comes to rigs, loads of you will know, I like to keep things nice and simple. So I've just threaded a snap link onto the line. I've stopped that with 2 number 8 slot shot. That acts as my little buffer stroke bead. I've tied a small loop, now I've just loop to loop my hook length onto the end of that. My hook length is 8 inch. I find that's sort of a happy medium length. I don't want it too short that it's right next to the lead, but I want a short hook length to help with that bolt effect when a fish picks up the bait. It's 8 inch of 014 line, and I'm using a size 16 eyed hook today. I'm mounting the bait in 2 ways. I've got quite a few different hook bait options with me today. I've got some 6mm pellets. I've got some yellow F1 Dynamite F1 pellets. I've got some green swim sting pellets that I've caught thousands of fish on over the years. I've also got some bread. So to mount the little discs of bread that I'm using a little quick stop on the hair, and to mount the pellets I'm using a little bait band. As always, I like to tie the knotless knot quite a way down the shank so everything lays flat against the shank, and I think that hooks more fish because everything's slightly more in line. Rod wise, I'm using an 11-foot rod, and I've got a custom reel. To be fair, it's a bit of a beefy setup that is, for the lake I'm fishing today. I'm only chucking maybe 20, 25, 30 metres today. I don't need such a beefy setup. A 10-foot rod and a small reel will be fine, but I'm fishing at the weekend. This is the gear I've already got set up, and me being me, I'm just using the gear I've got in my holdall. It's the end tackle that I think is really important. Small bomb as well. Not using anything too heavy. I don't want to cause a massive splash when the rig goes in, so I'm using 3/4 of an ounce. The important thing with the bomb, it can't be too light because it needs to boss the bag on the cast. We don't want everything to be swinging out in sort of a big mess. So the bomb needs to be heavy enough to boss the bag when you chuck it out, but it needs to go in with a nice small plop so you're not scaring loads of fish. So that's it when it comes to kit. Really simple kit. And now it's all about location. The lake I'm on today, Tornado Lake at Shearsby Valley, I've actually sat on a good peg. I like to make things easy for myself. Let's get it right. We go fishing to catch fish. So I don't want to sit at the end of the lake where there's no fish. This peg is actually a corner peg. And I know there's quite a lot of fish along the side bank here. But the area that I'm targeting is the far bank. There's pegs all around this lake, and I'm actually casting towards an empty peg on the far side. I've seen this lake drain down in the summer months when obviously the water table is really low. And what you'll find on a lot of fisheries is that when the anglers place keep nets in the water, it wears out a big hollow in front of the pegs. Obviously those fish moving around in the keep nets moving around, anglers dragging them out at the end of the day, it wears out the bottom. It makes a slightly deeper area in front of the peg. So I'm actually casting into the far side into one of those keep net holes. I'm chucking in an area probably about 2 meters away from the far bank, and I reckon I've got about 3 foot of water there, whereas either side of that little keep net hole I'm probably casting into only 2. So that extra depth of, you know, even if it's only a foot, can just help hold fish and make them feed more confidently. Again, the wind's pushing over the far side. I know that I've got a little bit of cover on the water, and you know, the results today have proved it. I'm catching loads of fish. One little trick I've got to tell you about, and it's something that works really well for me, especially later on in a session when maybe the fish have become a little bit tired of standard pellets or they've seen the presentation quite a lot throughout the day, is flavouring the bag. Now, as long as you're not using a water-based flavouring, which will obviously melt the PVA, you can quite easily bait up your bag, actually put it on your hook, bait up your hook, and dip it in some flavouring. The PVA takes on the flavouring really well. Obviously all those nooks and crannies in that little group of pellets that you've got there, that soaks up the flavouring sticks in those little nooks and crannies. You can chuck that out, you get an instant kick of flavouring around your hook bait. And I think that it definitely works. It definitely pulls fish into the peg, and it's just something different. Like I said, especially later on in the day when the fish are getting a little bit bored, it's something different which definitely gets you bites. So there you go, straight lead fishing with PVA bags. Doesn't have to be big PVA bags. Small parcels of loose feed around your hook bait is something that's a real winner. If you like this style of video, click subscribe. There's loads of videos on my channel covering all different tactics. It'd be great to see you on the bank. Tight lines.